Hey, everybody, it's Dave Cooper. Welcome to another expert interview on Monday. And man, do we have a great expert interview today. I want to thank everybody who is tuning in and those of you that are about to tune in. So please hit that like and share button right now because we are live on 3 locations: LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you're not following us, please follow. And if you are not subscribed, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel so you do not miss anything from the past, future, or present. So before we kick it off with our guest today, I want to thank our sponsor, George Garcia and Peter Strongberg from Garcia Strongberg Studios and Architects. For over 25 years, Garcia Strongbergs have been involved in a multitude of development projects, not only here in the United States, but globally around the world. And they have a mindset for offsite construction and believe offsite construction is the future. So we always want to reach out to Garcia Strongberg out of West Palm Beach, Florida. It's awesome having you as a sponsor. So with that said, thank you, Garcia Strongberg. Now, roadmap to recovery. This is something that I think is going to be a really, really interesting conversation to have. We're going to have Andrew Carpenter join us in just one moment. But this is pertinent. Why? Well, they're based in the United Kingdom, but they have implemented some strategies in their neck of the world, across the pond, that has helped modern methods of construction. And they're looking at construction much differently than a lot of other places. So without further ado, let me bring in Andrew.
Hello, Dave. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, well, welcome. It's a pleasure having you. I'm glad it's not too late for you over there. 6, 7 o'clock.
No,
right?
6 o'clock. No, this is early evening, Dave. So perfect timing.
Yeah, I love it. So, Andrew, I think
it's a busy day. So,
has it been a busy day?
Yeah, every day is busy now. I'm finding it's wall-to-wall Zoom meetings. To be honest, Zoom Teams, but getting used to it now. 6, 7 months in.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm glad you have a little bit more time for another almost like a Zoom meeting on our live stream with us today and with our audience. So let's before we talk about roadmap to recovery and all these great things you're working on personally, why don't you give us a little bit of your background from the moment you were born to this very moment in time? We want to know everything, but you only have 3 to 5 minutes to do it. So don't get up too much.
I'll be brief. So born and bred in a little market town in the southwest of England called Frome in Somerset. Lived there all my life and worked from there all my life. Went to school, did okay, not particularly brilliant. But when I left school, went out and became a DJ. And I DJ'd for a couple of years before my father said to me, I think you better get a proper job, son. So living in the West Country in England, you either went into quarrying or you went into agriculture. So I went to work on a quarry for a concrete block manufacturer called CRH, the second largest producer of building materials in the world. And I progressed through the structure within CRH through sales and technical and management and so on until around about the mid-noughties. When I went to work for a government organisation in the UK called Constructing Excellence. And they were responsible, or still are, for the best practice programme for implementing change management throughout the construction industry. And it was a combination of my manufacturing background and my government links that took me to the Structural Timber Association about 10 years ago. I was headhunted and asked if I would like to take over as head of the Structural Timber Association. The Structural Timber Association was quite fragmented at the time, and it was a question of bringing all the different parts of the structural timber sector together as one, which we've done very successfully. So I'm in my 10th year, and I'm absolutely loving it. But if you look behind me, you can probably see some certificates and some photographs, because my real passion is theatre. Over my right shoulder, so your left as you look, is a picture of me playing Max Bialystock in The Producers. And over my other shoulder is me playing Alfred P. Doolittle in My Fair Lady, for which I won an award for amateur theatre in the Southwest. So that's probably enough about me, Dave, because I could go on for the whole period.
Listen, I love it. I think this is going to be such a fun conversation. You can already tell you're full of
I
energy.
hope so.
And who knew you're an award-winning actor right here on Dave Cooper Live? I love it. I love it. I love it. So listen, before we jump in again to the roadmap of recovery, we're also going to talk a little bit later in the show about a campaign that you guys have going on called Time for Timber, and a short video on all that. And you know, all of these things are tied back into what the government's doing.
Yeah,
right.
All linked, Dave. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So why don't you give us an overview a little bit about what the roadmap of recovery is about, and why don't we walk through what those steps were and are.
So, like you guys, we obviously suffered with COVID-19 and still are. We're coming to terms with it all the time. We had a lockdown on March the 23rd, when pretty much the whole of the UK was locked down, and obviously the construction sector was badly hit, along with every other sector. However, I have to say that in my 40 plus years working in the construction sector, the way that we have utilized the time is most impressive. And in fact, the construction industry, from being the poor relation in government terms, in the last 6 or 7 months, has actually gone to the top of the tree. And the work that we carried out is now seen as best practice throughout the UK, and other sectors are being asked to follow what we're doing. In particular, I think what's impressed the public and the government is something called the Nightingale Hospitals. So what we've done is we've taken exhibition centres in the main conurbations throughout the UK, and we've turned them into hospitals. And we did it in super quick time. So we would do it in 2 or 3 weeks. So what would normally take 18 months has been done in super quick time. And what that's done is it's catapulted us up the league table, so to speak. And everyone's now talking about how wonderful the construction industry is. We've also had something called the Construction Leadership Council. And that is a group of 11 or 12 bodies that represent the whole of the UK construction industry, who have been meeting on a daily basis and then weekly with the respective ministers on the roadmap to recovery, which we're going to talk about, but in particular on something called the site operating procedures. So what we were able to do after shutdown, sites were closed for a period of maybe a week or two, whilst all the contractors came to terms with the new COVID-19 restrictions. But within about 2 weeks, most sites were back operating with the new procedures, which we call the site operating procedures. And it's these that have, again, put us on a pedestal in terms of what is considered to be best practice. So now, 6 or 7 months on, almost 100% of our building sites are back up and running, and at pretty damn near 100% productivity. So it's a real success story. It's a real success story, Dave.
Yeah, it does sound like a success story. And, you know, we've been hearing about it from several people, and that's why I'm looking forward to you really sharing what this roadmap to recovery is and where you are in the process of it. You know, and I know it all starts with kind of a restart is what you were, you know, at least with the documents. And we're going to share some of those timelines on the screen. But why don't you walk us through how this document came about, who wrote the document, and let's get into it.
Okay. So the roadmap to recovery was written by the Construction Leadership Council, which I've already mentioned. And this is, as I say, the coming together of a number of organizations that represent the clients, the architects and engineers and professionals, the contractors, and indeed the supply chain. So collectively, they've worked together in a very collaborative way and had a look at what needed to be done. So the idea, first of all, obviously, was we'd been shut down and we needed to restart. So in the first month to 3 months, we had what's called the restart program. And that was basically looking at all projects, all programs, and trying to get it to the highest level of restart in line with government guidance. And then, of course, to maximize employment, because we knew that unemployment could be a problem. The government have played a blinder. We've had a furlough scheme which has kept people in employment and paid for by the government. That comes to the end this month, but what it has meant is that the redundancies have been minimised. So what we wanted to do was maximise the employment throughout all the sites and their supply chains, and then minimise disruptions, because inevitably in times of ill, you sometimes get, shall we say, transactional adversarial relationships. So what we wanted to do was minimise that, and so the third part of the jigsaw was to have a fair payment schedule, which we asked people to adhere to.
Yeah.
But that's now gone, Dave. Really, that 3-month period sort of was April, May, June. So we're very much into the second and third phases, which is the reset,
right,
and then the reinvent.
So what we'll do, everyone, is we have actually a chart that we'll put up. Let's walk through them, and then let's revisit. So we'll put the visual of the chart up after this. Yeah. So, like you said, you've already been through phase one through months 1 through 3, I guess is what it was.
Yeah, that April, May, June was 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of an overview? Like, how hard was it to start putting this program in place? Did you get any pushback, or was it adopted fairly quickly?
Well, by the industry, it was adopted really well. The main pushback actually came from the general public. And that was because they were being asked to stay at home wherever they could, work from home. And here was a whole construction sector that was actually traveling to work, many of it on the bus and the train and the tube. And the only people that were meant to be traveling that way were the vital workers, i.e. the NHS and so on. And so there was a lot of kickback from the general public initially, until the government specifically came out and said, look, guys, the building industry is absolutely essential. They're building the Nightingale hospitals, they're building, other important buildings, new homes, schools, and so on. And so it took a while to get the public on our side, but that was managed, and we did that. And the Nightingale hospitals had a lot to do with that change of mood. Yeah,
and how big were the Nightingale hospitals? Do you know any specifics on them?
Well, the biggest was the one at the NEC in London, which is a massive exhibition centre. I'm not sure how many beds. I know the one in my neck of the woods in Bristol was about 300. Wow. But I think the one in London was nearer 800. And then we've got them in Birmingham and Glasgow and Manchester and Harrogate and so on. We've probably got a dozen of them now. There's one way down in the southwest as well. And they're there and ready. And unfortunately, the 3 in the northwest of England have just been asked to stand by because they're expecting an increase in need in the coming weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we're seeing some increases, and you even said over there, you guys are starting to see some increases again in the rebound on some of this COVID, which, man, just do what we can do.
Coinciding, Dave, with me being on your show, Boris Johnson is actually on TV now speaking to the public about the new rules. So I'll wait to find out what's in store.
Can you give him a call and see if he can hop off that program and jump in with us since he's talking about this?
That'd be good.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's a big deal. So, well, like you said, Boris is actually talking about these campaigns. Is that correct? And what's going on?
Well, he went on TV back in July.
Yep.
And he said, build. So his view of getting the UK out of any recession is to build. And it's build back quicker. So there's an emphasis on offsite. It's build back better. Yeah. Which is all around quality post the Grenfell fire disaster that I'm sure you heard of, and then build back greener, which is all around net zero. By the way, I was looking at the Biden campaign, and I see they're using build back better as well. I'm not sure who thought of it first.
I don't know, but it'll be fun. Well, it'll be fun to watch, right? It's that time of year, political season around these parts.
I'm loving watching your campaign for the presidency. It's really entertaining from here.
I think it's a bit of a circus for everybody at the moment, regardless of your side of the stance. Yeah. All right. So politics is not on the agenda here.
No.
But we are going to get into this, and like you said, this Time for Timber campaign and some of the things Boris is saying, we're going to get to that. Let's hop in. So you said, all right, we're now at the reset phase, not the restart phase.
Yeah,
so the reset phase is 3 to 12 months.
So reset was all about getting the industry ready to move forward again, and the most important thing, because the wheels had come off. Let's be honest, for everybody. So we had to create a pipeline, and there was a real drive for the government in particular to look at pipeline in terms of the spend that they're going to be introducing. So there's a huge emphasis on projects which are being paid for by the government purse. So certainly housing, affordable housing, social housing, that's an area of increase. And infrastructure. There's some huge infrastructure projects that were signed during lockdown. Most notably, something called HS2, which is a big rail project, which gives us high-speed rail from London through to the Midlands and then up to the north of England. So that started, and that's a multi-billion-pound project. I can't remember the actual figure. It's 60, 70 billion. It's huge. We're also in the middle of our first nuclear power station, which is about an hour's drive from me, first one for 20 odd years. And that's being looked at and being extended. So the demand was important. We're also looking at the repair and maintenance area of the business. So those were the key drivers in the pipeline. But also we had to look at productivity, Dave.
Yeah.
But inevitably, we had to look at doing things differently. So we had the social distancing measures on site. We had to take those into account. So we had to do things differently. So productivity initially dropped to maybe 50, 60%. But we're up now, well, 90, nearly 100% productivity, because obviously people have got used to working in the new ways. And then the key for me was what we called professionalism. So we wanted to use this as an opportunity to invest in training, collaborative behaviors, fair contracts. So there was an understanding that the construction industry that we left in March was not the same one that we wanted to go back to. So we wanted to put more emphasis on quality and compliance of the workforce. We didn't want decisions being taken on lowest cost, lowest price.
Right.
We wanted to look at digital and off-site technologies. And the move to MMC is immense. Everyone you talk to now in the UK has got MMC on their lips.
Yeah. So
with government spend, Dave, there's now a presumption in favor of MMC.
And I want to clarify MMC, because we have an MMC here as well, but it's not the same one you're speaking of.
Okay.
The MMC,
modern methods of construction.
That's right.
Or off-site construction. Yes. Or pre-manufactured. So many terms, Dave, for it, but MMC is what's generally known as modern methods of construction or off-site construction. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, but even the MMC was kind of the starting platform, I'm assuming, for some of these other things that you're working on now, right? Moving out of COVID, it kind of set the standard for how you're going to build in the future, or what builders and developers had to look at. And now what's happened with COVID, this is kind of just layering on some other smart solutions to that. Would that be an accurate comment?
Absolutely. It's accelerated the program.
Yeah.
So MMC or off-site construction's been around a long time. Certainly through my 40 years, it's had one or two goes at trying to come to the fore.
Yep.
It's been popular for a few years and then died. But what changed it for us in the UK was about 4 years ago. A guy by the name of Mark Farmer was commissioned to do a report, and he called it Modernise or Die.
That's right.
So a very stark message, which said to the UK construction industry, if you don't modernise the way that you build, we've been building houses the same way for 100 years. If you don't embrace digitalisation, if you don't embrace off-site technologies, then you will die, was the message. For all sorts of reasons. and it was linked to the need to build 300,000 homes a year.
Right.
And we're not getting anywhere near that yet.
Yeah. Well, just
Maybe
so you know,
two-thirds away.
Yeah, we have Mark Farmer coming on the show on the 26th to talk about Modernize or Die in the report
Brilliant.
that he wrote, and talk about not only has it impacted your country, but it's impacted a lot of countries around the world that Mark is now working with to talk about the solutions that they've come up with that have made a very positive impact. So I think put that on your schedule, right? I'm looking at my calendar, October 26th, 1 p.m. That'll be another expert interview. So perfect.
Yeah, Mark, so that's 2 weeks' time. Yeah, Mark's a super speaker. I know Mark. I've known him for years. He's chairman of an organization called Constructing Excellence.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned earlier. And
Right.
I'm a director. So, yes, I know Mark well. You'll love listening to him. Got some great stories.
Oh, perfect. He's not an award-winning actor, though, is he?
No, he'll have some other strings to his bow. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, for sure. All right, why don't we take a second and just say hello to a few people that are tuning in here today, and then what we can do is then we'll get to the chart. We'll talk about the chart, and we can talk about the impacts you're already seeing, with an overall impact that you're already feeling. It would be good to get your feel on this and keep rolling through. So, let's see who's out there paying attention today. We got George Ryman all the way from Phoenix, Arizona. What's happening, George? Thank you. We got Shane McNutt from Ohio. What is happening, Shane? Shane's with a company called Nudo. So I'm glad you're joining us, Shane. Good to see you. Joel Hutchins, afternoon from Atlanta. Joel, good to see you. Man, everybody loves to talk about where they're from, and we asked that question, so it's my fault. I love it. Hey, John, what's happening? Yeah. Well, you know what? It's fun to bring people into the show and have a good time with everybody. So we got John on the show, which is good today. John, I hope you're well in Chicago. And we got Mark Barenaked Willie. He said he wasn't able to get on LinkedIn, but it seems like a lot of other people are on. But he's on Facebook and YouTube. So I love it. He said the event doesn't give access. We'll have to look at that. Andrew Seeley is on from Arizona. What's happening, Andrew? Buzz Holitzer, what's happening, Buzz? Let's build better for our future.
Yeah.
Here, right? I like that. I think that is great. All right, what else do we have going on here? We got Tom Reddy from Synergy Steel. Hey, Tom, great show. Look, everybody's liking your accent so far. All right, we got Henry Mickelberg. You know Henry Mickelberg from France? Henry says, on the basis that the UK will be operating as a World Trade Organization third country from January, what strategy and standards will the Structural Timber Association adopt to manage this? You know what? I got to say something. Henry always comes with the best questions, man. I just don't. I wish my mind would work as smooth as his.
So to answer your questions, another one of the issues we are dealing with at the moment is Brexit. You won't be surprised to know. And the supply of our raw material, i.e. timber, which comes from Europe, from Sweden in particular, is something we're dealing with. In fact, timber prices are going up very rapidly, and some of our product is actually on allocation at the moment. So it's a very good question. Whether the STA can go global, I don't know. But at the moment, we're a UK organisation looking after UK membership. But who knows what might happen from January? Good question.
Yeah, definitely a good question. So, all right, perfect. Let's hop back into what we were talking about here, Andrew. And if anybody else has questions, put them in the comments. We will get to them. We're looking to take a deeper dive into everything we're talking about now. And if you're on the government side in this part of the world, chime in. Love to hear what you guys are working on, what you're thinking as far as rebuilding. I know some people from the NAHB are probably out there as well. That would be our National Association of Home Builders, Andrew.
Yep.
Good. All right, let's share the chart and kind of walk through this. And if you can give us some insight on some of the things that were part of this chart. Go ahead.
So we've talked about the restart and we've talked about the reset. But I think the most important and exciting part of this roadmap to recovery is the reinvent. Because I've already said that it's accepted that we don't want to go back to the same construction industry that we left back in March. So that's pretty much universally agreed throughout the UK, right through the supply chain, from government through clients, through contractors, through consultants, and the supply chain. So this transformation is what we're talking about. And the build that Boris talked about really covers the key points. So we want to build back greener. We've got this climate crisis. I know there are some in your country that are denying it at the moment, but pretty much in the UK, whatever flavour of political party you support, everyone's agreed that we need to deal with it. And Theresa May, God bless her, as her parting gift in July last year, set a target of reaching net zero by 2050. And that is probably the number one agenda item. In fact, I understand that in the COVID-19 revival, Rishi Sunak, our Chancellor, has said that if you want to request funding, if it hasn't got an element of net zero as a target, then forget it, you won't get any funding. So all roads lead to net zero, and that's coming straight from the top, straight from Boris, straight from our Chancellor. So that's good news, because obviously, if I put my timber frame hat on, obviously with timber being the very best building material when it comes to the sustainability argument, particularly its embodied carbon credentials, it puts us in a very, very good position. So sustainability is important. We also had the Build Back Better, which is on the back of the Grenfell Tower disaster. We had serious fire 3 years ago, 100 plus people killed. What that did was then bring about a report by Dame Judith Hackett, who looked at the UK construction industry and came up with the view that the culture was wrong, and that people were taking decisions for the wrong reasons, with people basing their decisions purely on price, and not on quality and compliance. So we've now got a new building safety bill that came out about a month ago, and we've now got building safety officers that report straight to our health and safety executive. So it's got tremendous teeth. So the second part is all around building better, and then the build back faster, which is of course the offsite move. As I say, there is now a presumption in favour of offsite for any government spend. So that's really, really very positive from a structural timber point of view. You know, we sit well in all three camps, and so that's a pretty exciting place to be. And we're already seeing this was happening beforehand, I should say, but we're already seeing some of the big house builders, like the biggest one we have is Barratt's here in the UK. Barratt's build about 17,000 homes a year. And they've recently bought one of my members, Oregon Timber. We've had another company called Countryside who bought a company called West Frame, another timber frame company. We've got Persimmon that owns Space 4. So we're seeing quite a move from the UK house builders buying timber frame companies. And that is to provide an off-site solution, but also a sustainably friendly solution as well.
So can I ask you on the 2015 goal of net zero? 2050. Okay, good. I wanted to clarify that. So is that 2050 on new construction, or is that also anybody that wants to update something that's not new construction?
Good question. The target, as I understand it, is new build. Having said that, we are looking at existing stock, and most of the issues are in existing stock.
Yeah,
we're having people coming up with solutions. I mean, the one that in my sector they're looking at is a sort of like an overcoat built-in SIPs panels, timber panels.
Yeah.
The problem, of course, is the cost, because an estimate is that these will cost about 60,000 per home. And if you think of the number of homes that we've got, I mean, in the UK, fades into insignificance compared to yours, I'm sure, but it's all relative.
Yeah.
So it is a cost issue, but certainly for new build, we're moving towards 2050. In fact, the councils in England seem to be competing with one another. trying to outdo each other in terms of how quickly they can get there. So I think 2028 is the shortest time I've heard to date. I have my doubts whether that will actually be achieved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's quick, right? That's only
right
down the road, you know.
7 years away nearly.
And then
So,
I have a follow-up question as well. Who are some of the key people or partners driving point number 3 in the final, right? Transformation, value, partnerships. Who are some of the partners that are working with you to accomplish this?
So we have something in the UK called the Construction Innovation Hub. And that is made up of the BRE, which is the British Research Establishment, the MTC, which is the Manufacturing Technology Centre, and then the Cambridge Centre for Digitally Built Britain.
Okay.
And they've come together with some government spending. This was already in play before COVID-19 to transform the UK construction industry, to make it more integrated, more collaborative, and to embrace modern technologies, including offsite and digital.
Yeah.
So they've employed Constructing Excellence, which is Mark Farmer's organisation, of which I'm part, to be what we call the adoption arm. So it's those 4 organisations that are really driving the change under the leadership of the Construction Leadership Council, which we've talked about.
Right.
Putting together this roadmap to recovery. So the Construction Innovation Hub was already in place. It had been in place for about a year before COVID, but obviously everything that's now happened is really accelerating everything we do. Everyone is now on fast track to make these changes. So we're aiming at a more collaborative culture where we work together with seamless intersections at the supply chain, and where we procure on best value rather than lowest price,
right,
through these integrated supply chains, for the reasons that we've already spoken about.
Yeah, and so how was the let me rephrase this. How is the adoption of all this since COVID? Because we're seeing it here. Offsite construction has really garnered a lot more attention while COVID has been happening. People have been taking the time to look at better ways of doing things just in general. So the numbers are there for that. It's sounding like it's the same thing where you're at. It's actually expediting what you already started to put in place, but now there's a lot more attention to it, and people are really starting to pay attention to the health side of this.
Yeah, I mean, the benefits of offsite construction are now being understood by a much wider audience. I mean, the big stumbling block historically, I think, has just been one of, well, we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony with timber frame, I think, in the States, I think you've got 3 out of 4 homes built in timber frame, isn't it? Something like that. Certainly around the world, it's about that figure. Even in Scotland, north of the border here in the UK, 3 out of 4 homes are built in timber. It's just in England and Wales where we've got this fixation about masonry build. But as I mentioned earlier, some of the house builders have now changed over, or certainly in part. And we've got lots of other people thinking the same way. So absolutely, the COVID-19 situation has acted as a catalyst. So people are looking at the benefits, looking at the need for less labour on site, do the work in the factory, cleaner, safer, more sustainable, bring it to site and just assemble it.
Yeah. So let me as a follow-up question to that, with all of this and the MMC, how did the government adopt this program, and was there a ton of pushback from the construction sector of people not wanting to do this? This is where it gets a little bit different, right? Because I know, just like here, most people do not want the government telling them what they should or should not do.
Okay, I think the beauty of the roadmap to recovery is it's not really a government document; it's an industry document.
Thank you.
So the industry hierarchy came together every day in the early weeks of COVID, and came together with this roadmap. The minister was part of the group, so it wasn't dictated. This was created by the industry for the industry, and that's why I think it's been so well received. There are a few people who are pushing back against it, as you can imagine. Those in the traditional masonry build, for example, who are seeing markets eroded by off-site construction, they're pushing back a little bit. But then you're always going to get dinosaurs, aren't you, in any industry? You know, there's a lot of people that don't want change.
Right.
But the momentum now behind off-site construction is massive, absolutely massive. And Mark will tell you more about that in 2 weeks, because he's the main driver. He's responsible for a lot of it.
Well, I know I'm really excited to have him on, because I mean, that was a huge undertaking, not just on the information and putting it together, but the traction that it received is really, really commendable. So let's look at
exciting stuff.
Let's look at another couple comments here. We got Miles Big saying reinvent. What's happening, Miles? Good to see you. We have Joel Hutchins. You mentioned reinvention and transformation along with smart contracts and payments. From your knowledge, has there been any major adoption of project bank accounts? And if so, what are the major benefits?
Okay, we are looking at project bank accounts. That's certainly something which the government is investigating. We've had one or two pilot projects where they've looked at it. I have to be honest with you, we're not too far down the road with that at the moment. I think project bank accounts will come. And I also think we need to look at project insurance as well, because the insurance industry at the moment is of a concern, because as you can imagine, some of the claims have gone up, and so some of the premiums have gone up as well. So I think part of the reinvention will be around project bank accounts and insurance and so on. But to be perfectly blunt with you, we're not that far along the road yet. We've just got pilot projects.
Perfect. Thanks, Joel, for the
great question.
Yep. And I have a follow-up question from Henry Mickelberg here. Let's see what Henry had to say. Obviously, it's very unlike the UK government to spout mendacious rhetoric, but what really matters is legislation. When do you think that minimum mandatory MMC percentages will become the law?
Well, I have to say, I was delighted with the government when they brought in the building safety bill post Grenfell and post Hackett. They made that law, and they brought in advisors to back it up, who have now got teeth, because they report to the health and safety executive. You are right. At the moment, we've got individual councils, for example, like Hackney in London, who have got a timber first policy, but it's not mandated. So you're right. The UK construction industry, probably like every other, behaves differently. One, if it becomes regulation or legislation, or two, if the client says it's a good idea. So at the moment, I think it's unlikely we're going to get any regulation in the short term, to be perfectly honest. But what we are getting is a lot of clients who are pushing it, which is equally good in terms of the carrot versus the stick.
Perfect. Henry, thanks, man. I always love it when you tune in and ask these questions. Joel as well. All right. We're at about 42 minutes. Let's talk about Time for Timber. Let's talk about what this campaign is. Why is Boris all about, talking about it? And we got a short little, I think it's about a 50-second little video clip we'll show. Yeah. You tell me if you want to show the video first, or you want to give an overview of what it is.
Yeah, let's go for the video, Dave. Then we can talk out the back of it.
All right. Let me stop this screen share and add another screen share in here, and we will pull it right up. All right, here we go.
The science on climate is overwhelming. I used to meet a lot of climate deniers 8-10 years ago. Now I meet relatively few, and I think we have won the argument based on science. If we don't address CO2, we're going to change the climate with serious social, economic, and health problems. We're using far more of the world's resources than we should be, and that will have to be addressed. We're going to have less impact. So in construction, we have to use more recycled materials. We have to use more sustainable materials. We have to use more timber.
We will build. Build back better, build back greener, build back faster.
Yeah. So, there you have it, right? me
Yeah,
just
a
stop
little
this
snippet.
before it plays. So I have to say, I love his hair.
You love his hair.
You know, politicians in their hair these days, right?
I'll let you into a little secret. I snuck into my kitchen where I've got a TV to watch an announcement he was giving to Parliament ahead of the public announcement tonight. He'd obviously had his hair cut.
Oh, yeah?
There were little bits of hair on his suit, on his shoulder. He had a dark blue suit on, and of course his fair hair showed up. So I thought that was quite funny. That's going to be all over the press tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Anything they can do. You know, that's what happens. All right. So let's talk about this. Tell us about Time for Timber, your involvement, and I'll put some information up here for everybody so they know where that website is. There's a full video too, by the way, right? That was only a short video. There's a 10-minute version of that. That's the teaser video. So if you want to hear more about it, please go to the website and the ticker down below here.
So what we wanted to do as a trade association was we wanted to change the conversation. We wanted to give confidence to government, to stakeholders, to clients, to insurers, to funders, that they could use timber safely. We wanted to emphasize to them that that the green agenda, the net zero agenda was here. It was important to people, and that in building terms, they had to use more timber if they were going to meet the targets. So this was all about changing the conversation and really about giving facts and evidence to the key influencers in our industry. It's only been running for 2 or 3 weeks, but the impact we've had so far has been really positive. The video which you alluded to, we showed 50 seconds just now. It's part of a 10-minute clip, but that brings together 6 or 7 of the key industry influencers, and they explain why the use of more timber in construction is vital, including Oliver Novakovic, who's the innovation director at Barrett's, who explains why they're using more timber and why they've bought a timber frame company. So it is about changing the conversation. It's about putting timber at the center of particularly the house building program going forward for the UK.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting, you keep bringing up Boris, and you know, with that and being a large builder in the UK, developer, what have you, and they are actually starting to implement these procedures, obviously buying up, you know, manufacturers or solutions for the industry. You know, what have they been saying? Because this is something that we struggle with here in the United States. Or are we going to jump into, you know, offsite construction, mass timbers construction? There's a whole lot of back and forth. Why have they embraced it? I think it'd be very, very good to hear.
Well, I actually came over to the States about 3 years ago with one of their innovation managers, a guy called Alex Cook. What was interesting as a business, a few years ago, they asked 2 of their younger members of staff to do a project whereby they investigated whether as a business they should move from traditional build to offsite, and in particular timber frame. And they wanted to ask 2 young people in the company to do it because they didn't have any baggage. So there was no history of what had gone before. So these 2 young guys, one of which was Alex Cook, that came to the States with me, they did this exercise and they did a presentation to the board a few years ago now. And the presentation very firmly came down in favor of using more timber frame. And so that's why the board accepted it. Those longer in the tooth within the business also accepted it. And as I say, it's culminated in them buying a timber frame company, and probably about 20-25% of their houses this year will be timber frame. And that's from a standing start 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. And they're the biggest house builder in the UK, and what they do, others follow. So, but they're looking at all sorts of issues. I mean, we have skills shortages in the UK. You know, the average age of a bricklayer is about 55 in the UK. You can imagine in 10 years' time, they're going to retire, and we haven't got many youngsters coming through the other end. So I think there's a business need. You've also got a younger clientele in terms of house builders who are now beginning to ask questions that my age group wouldn't. We were about location. Yeah. You know, they're interested in sustainability, It's part of their DNA. My grandchildren growing up, Greta Thunberg, David Attenborough in the UK, may not be a name you know, but big stalwarts of sustainability. You've got, I don't know, you've got Extinction Rebellion, but we have. Now, this is all having an impact on the way young people think, and I think there's an understanding that when these youngsters come through into the buying public in a generation, they're going to start asking difficult questions. So I think the move's unstoppable.
So so out of curiosity, I mean, what are you doing over there to get the younger people interested in the trades, interested in masonry or any of the things? Do you have some good programs in place?
We do. We have an organization called the CITB, the Confederation of Construction Industry Training Board. And they have a website called Go Construct, where they promote all forms of construction. Because I think one of the things we find is if you ask a youngster in the UK about the building industry, they either think of bricklaying or being an architect. There's not a lot in between. So it's about showing the length and breadth of what's available. Mm-hmm. But certainly a lot of youngsters now don't like the idea of working on wet and windy building sites. So the more we can take the work into a clean and safe factory, I think the better off we're going to be. So it's about improving the image. And again, around the image, you've got digitalization. These youngsters are brought up, aren't they, on the digital machines and technology. And my granddaughter, who's 2 now, can work the iPad and everything else that goes with it. And that's the way they're brought up. So I think, BIM is only a continuation of Minecraft, So yeah, it's all about preparing the construction industry for the younger generation that's coming through.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I agree with that. And I always said the same thing. It's the technology that's going to bring them back into this industry, building in a better, cleaner, warmer environment, but technology, I think, is key. And that's the first time I heard you say that, anybody say that BIM is an extension of Minecraft, because it really is. But that's how we need to think.
Well, that's how we sell it when we go to schools and colleges.
Yeah.
We talk about Minecraft and then we say, well, actually, why don't you come and do it for a living and make some money out of it?
That's right. Hey, you can make a really good living in the trades these days. To me, I always look at it. It's like being an airline pilot back in, I think it was the 70s. They had their boom, right? It's the place.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be an airline pilot right now.
No, not now. Not now. Let's see. Look who's joining today. We got good old Jerry McCahey in the house.
Nice to see Jerry.
Jerry, good to see you, man. We've covered a lot of grounds today. So I want to thank Jerry, because Jerry's put us in touch, which was great. So I'm glad you popped in there so I can give you a shout out. Jerry from Integra. He is transforming how we panelize buildings from the ground up. So, well,
I watch Jerry's work from afar on social media. Very impressive.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I think he's on social media more than me, and I'm always on social media. always. Oh, we got some more comments coming in. We'll hit a few more comments, and can you believe, Andrew, we were at this for almost 52 minutes already. Really. Time flies, man, when you're having fun.
Absolutely, I'm loving it.
All right, Joel Hutchins says,
almost as good as being on stage, Dave.
So Joel, well, here you go. This comes from a guy that believes in computational design in a big way. BIM is not Minecraft. Computational design is. Okay. So I knew Joel would say that. That's a given.
Splitting hairs, I think.
All right, we have Henry Mickelberg. The Barrett Homes, UK's largest housing developer, is using an MMC solution. Think FiOS, aka Jerry McCahey, I think is what he meant to say. And it works. Plus, they've got lots of lovely, provable data.
Yep.
Perfect.
Well, Dave, I am going to try and get Alex along as one of your guests in the future, because I think he would be really interesting for your listeners and viewers. I did ask him along today, but at such short notice, unfortunately, he couldn't make it. But I'm sure I can get him along for one of your future shows.
Yeah, we would love to have him on. It would be great to have a big developer on talking about how the change has worked for them. And I think that's a great thing. So we'd appreciate that. I'll tell you who else I'd like to have on the show or talk to is who's running the Go Construct program, because we need more youth in this industry.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some things we can do together and learn from, not only across the pond, but here in this country, and really drive
Yeah,
this industry.
well, I'll put you in touch with my CITB colleagues, and I'm sure they'd be pleased to do that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jerry firing back. Not quite, Dave. He's saying, I guess I'm on social media more than him. I don't know. And then Henry said he's apologizing for getting Jerry's name. I'll get it right. Hey, Henry, don't worry about it. I've been saying Jerry's name wrong for a long time, and then finally he had enough, and he called me out on it. It's Makahe. I love it. Hey, listen, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been absolutely wonderful. And if I said it the way you said, it's been absolutely lovely.
Thank you. No, fabulous. I've loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, I loved it as well. All right, everybody. So I have, Andrew, your comments and everything here. We have this full presentation, Roadmap to Recovery. If you are interested in receiving a copy of it, just send me a private email message, and we will get it out to you in the LinkedIn Messenger, YouTube, or Facebook, and we will get this to you, because we are live on 3 locations, Andrew. That's the best part about this: LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So before you leave, hit that like and share button, because the only way we can spread the word to better our industry is if we all collaborate and share information. So, Andrew, with that said, you have yourself a wonderful evening, sir. Enjoy a good meal, and thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, everybody. Andrew Carpenter, CEO, Structural Timber Association. I'm Dave Cooper, davecooper.live. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock, because tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we have Stone Pile Construction College coming on. It is one of the, or if the only, off-site construction college where you can get a master's degree. Think about that, a master's degree. We're launching it right here tomorrow, 1 p.m. on Building Modular. We're going to have the founders on and people that run this college. So here's your chance to talk to the best, because they are leading the way. Andrew, we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Cheerio.